In today's video, we're going to be looking at how to re-oil and maintain your wooden butcher block countertop. So there's two types of butcher block countertops that you can make for yourself. So one type is the one that's permanent. It's bolted and glued in and it's not going anywhere. So that means if you get cuts and scratches and scorch marks and everything, it's a bit of work to kind of get them back out, and you can't just toss it out and bring in another one like you could with a cutting board. So these are butcher block cutting boards made out of the exact same wood that we use to make the countertops themselves. So it's all sapele mahogany. So it's important to do oil instead of a surface finish like varnish or polyurethane, because it's a countertop in a kitchen, or if you're in a boat like we are, in a galley. They take a lot of abuse. So if you have a surface finish, anytime a pot nicks it or chips it or bumps into it, it's going to crack the finish, and then water gets in under there, and then it's going to start staining the wood and just makes a mess. If you do oil, the wood itself from the inside out is protected. So stuff hits it, whatever, you're just hitting wood. So it's really easy to maintain it, and it's really, really resilient. So how do you know when it's time to apply more oil to your countertop? There's a couple ways. One, if we look right now, I've already re-oiled the countertop itself, and you can see it's got this rich mahogany color. Now this is the exact same wood that we used for the countertop, and you can see how much lighter it is. So it just looks dry, and you're going to start seeing a lot of areas where the wood just looks dried out. So when you see that, it's time to put more oil in the wood. Say that you don't really have a good eye, or you don't think you have a good eye yet for when the wood is dry. There's another really easy way to check it. All you need is some water. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water on the wood, and you can see it kind of just spreads out and soaks into the wood. Now if we look at an area that's well oiled, it beads up and runs off, so it won't soak into the wood. So when the water beads up on your wood and doesn't really soak into it, you know that it's well oiled and you don't have to worry about it. When it starts looking like this and it just sits there and won't go away, and worst off, when you wipe it off, the wood now has a wet spot on it, you know that the wood itself is really dry. At that point, you now need to oil your wood. Now the cutting boards, I made a couple of them. So we have these that drop into the sink, so food preparation is nice and easy, and you have this really high lip that keeps the food from falling out, because being in a sailboat, stuff goes everywhere. Now we also have these smaller ones that I made, which allow us to use anywhere we need. There's some scorch marks on this wood. So we have scorch marks in these areas. You have a whole bunch of scratches around here. So the cutting boards take a lot of abuse. Now, if you really wanted to make them look just like absolutely brand new, you can sand them down, take out all the blemishes, because it's wood. So you just sand it down until it's perfect, and then you can oil it again. Now, if you're not going for absolute perfection, all you need to do is take some bronze wool and scour it. That'll take off all the surface things and just kind of like clean up the surface and make it look really good. Now it's important to only use bronze wool and never, ever, I mean, just like don't even think about using steel wool. Because when you're cleaning with bronze or steel wool, they will both do the same thing. They'll knock off just a smidge of the surface, they won't take off too much, and they'll kind of clean everything up. But while they're working, little pieces of the metal are going to break off. So if you're using bronze wool, you're going to have little pieces of bronze everywhere, which nothing really happens. If you're using steel wool, you'll have little pieces of steel everywhere, and all those little pieces are going to rust. So it might look fine right at the beginning, but forever you're going to have these little spots of rust just coming up, and you're never going to get them all out, and it's just going to ruin everything. So definitely never use steel wool, even if you're in a house. Only use bronze wool when you're scouring the countertop. Okay, so now you can see this one's got some scorch marks on it. This one has a whole bunch of scratches. Now this is from a lot of use. We actually cook in our kitchen. To oil it, you're just going to take some regular extra virgin olive oil and just pour it on. And you're just going to spread it around. Now if you notice, all the scratches that were in the wood completely disappeared. Now if you had done this with varnish or any other kind of surface coat, getting those scratches to disappear would not be that easy. So you can see now, oiled and not oiled. This is dry, and this is now very wet with oil. So we're going to oil this one as well. Just going to pour some oil on there. Okay, when you're done, you're actually halfway done. So now we're just going to flip them, and we're going to oil them again. And it's important, lift them up, get the sides, and around all the corners. So now we're just going to let the oil sit for a few minutes, just soak in. And we take a dry paper towel and just wipe off any excess that's still hanging out. That is all it takes to re-oil your wood. So that's it. All you have to do is scour the surface with a bronze pad to just, knock down any areas and just clean it up a bit. Then you just clean up with a brush. All you're doing is just getting all the dust off of there. And then after that, you oil it with olive oil. And then you let the olive oil sit on it for a few minutes. And then you just wipe it down with a dry paper towel. That's it. Now, if you're wondering about food-safe oils that you can use, you have to think about it. Olive oil, you put in your food and eat. You can buy olive oil for really cheap, whereas butcher block specific food grade oil, it's pretty expensive. So when it comes to ease of finding it and ease of purchasing it, olive oil kind of wins there. So now that it's been a few minutes, we're just gonna mop up any excess that's on here. And then we just let them sit for a day just to dry out all the way. Now, if you just oiled your cutting boards and you decide I'm kind of hungry and I want to use it, you can use it. It's just olive oil, so your food's just gonna have a little extra olive oil in it. So that's all it takes to maintain a butcher block countertop. Anytime it starts to look dry, just wipe it down with olive oil, mop up the excess, and then give it a couple days to fully dry. So for the first few days, if you touch it, it's gonna feel a little oily, because it is. As the oil goes soaking into the wood becomes a lot happier. And you'll hear me talk about happy wood when it comes to oiling wood. And that's because the tree that the wood came from used to have moisture in it. Its purpose is to channel and carry moisture through it, all sorts of liquids. Now, when the tree dies and they cut it down and they dry out the wood, that whole structure remains, but it's all dry. And anytime water gets on it, it just soaks right in because the machinery to carry moisture and fluids through the wood is still there. So it'll just suck the water right into it, and then it gets deep inside, and then the wood starts having problems and it rots and just all sorts of issues. If you give it oil, it soaks all the oil into the wood, deep into its grain. And then if any water gets on it, well, there's already oil in there, and oil and water don't mix. So that means that any water that tried to get in is repelled by the oil that's already inside there because it was there first. So that's the idea. You start with dry wood when you make your countertop, and anytime it starts looking dry, just re-oil it. And just keep it oiled, keep it happy, and your countertop will last a really long time. When I made this about a year ago, I saturated it as much as it would take in linseed oil. And the reason is linseed oil just soaks into the wood and just holds put. Now, as far as eating off of something oiled with linseed oil, I do not know if that's safe. So the cutting boards I oiled only with olive oil. Regular, plain, extra virgin olive oil. Nothing fancy. So you have it already in your kitchen and you just put it on. Now for all the successive re-oils that I've done on this, I use olive oil because while we don't prepare food on the butcher block countertop itself, food touches it. It's a boat, so food goes everywhere. So that is how you can easily maintain your butcher block countertops with nothing more than olive oil, which means that it'll last a really long time in your boat or in your house. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to see more. That way you never miss any of these cool little tidbits that work in your house or on your boat. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends.
And if you'd like to follow our journey in real time on a map, receive postcards from our ports of call, and message us directly to the boat, you can go ahead and become a patron using the link in the description down below.